Hey, how you guys doing today? Welcome to Off Camber. My name's Alfred, and today my buddy Rob is joining us for this video.
What's up, guys? Rob with Adventure Bound Off-Road.
So in the previous videos, you've seen Rob and myself go through different installs, kind of how-tos, product, kind of like talking about products and stuff. Today we're gonna kind of change it up a little bit, and we'll be talking more like a topic point. And then one thing we've noticed, coming into the shop a lot, is beadlock wheels. So we'll talk about beadlock wheels, why you need them, maybe the reason why you don't need them, pros and cons to it, and and that nature. But so like one of the big things to do when you go off road is I would say disconnecting and airing down, right? Because like airing down will give you the wider footprint, give you a little bit more traction, and also airing down helps out with the ride, because like you around here, Fish Creek is a lot of washboards, and I know you
feel it.
You feel it. It's annoying. It's a pain in the ass to drive with, and then it shakes the suspension around and shakes around all your gear. So airing down does kind of help mediate that. But yeah, so we're talking about beadlocks today. But this Jeep behind us, actually one of the customers to Adventure Bound Off-Road, he's been wanting beadlocks. Actually, him and his wife have been wanting beadlocks for a while now. They dropped off the wheels to us, I would say, what, 2-3 weeks ago, maybe? Yeah.
Sent the rings out to powder coat.
Yep, set the rings out to powder coat and get him back and then get him in the shop. So yeah, we'll kind of jump into it. We'll start talking about some beadlocks, but like you want to talk about I guess the structure of a beadlock, what makes a beadlock?
Yeah, so fundamentally a beadlock wheel allows you to bolt the tire to the wheel. So basically you're going to sandwich the bead of the tire between the wheel and that ring, and that is going to clamp the bead of the tire to the wheel, so that way you don't roll a bead when you air down off-road.
Yeah, because like a traditional wheel, if you kind of think about it, it's if you think from the inside out, it's the wheel. You have these, it's the wheel in the center, and you got the tire. They have these like little channels that the tire sits in, and then on the
like a rib.
A rib, exactly. It's exactly what it is. A rib that retains it. But on the beadlock, you basically don't use that outer rib. You mount the tire on the outside, and then like you said, you use that ring to clamp the tire down. Yep. And there's a number of different companies that sell beadlocks out there. I know a couple. Let's see, I think Trail Ready, Method, Battleborn, KMC. Dirty Life. There's a lot of OEs even making their own beadlocks. Mopar on the Recon edition for the JLs, they actually offer a beadlock capable wheel. That is kind of I think they call it like a dual sport wheel. I think it is a dual sport, yeah.
From the factory, it comes mounted like a traditional wheel. You can dismount that and then remount that. You have to purchase the beadlock kit, which comes with the actual beadlock ring and the hardware, and you can mount that as your typical beadlock. So it's a dual-purpose wheel,
which is pretty good too, because I think like manufacturers are slowly like realizing it's like for like wheel options, like a beadlock wheel is a desirable option, right? Yep. And even though it only comes as a simulated beadlock originally, but yeah, you just go to the parts department and you basically buy the beadlock kit for it. Yep. And you can just mount the wheel as a beadlock.
And Ford has done that as well with the Raptors for a number of years, and they're offering that as well with the Bronco, I believe.
Yeah, which is a great option. Yep. Increases the capability of that vehicle. Yep. And I know there's some like oddball companies out there too, like Hutchison. They make the Monster wheel, right? Is it Monster wheel? Yeah, it is Monster wheel. And
so that wheel, it's a two-piece wheel, and then there's a center. It's a center piece,
and then when sleeve or
basically a sleeve that goes on the inside of the wheel, and when those two halves come together, that center sleeve pushes outward on both beads of the tire. So they call that an inner and outer beadlock. Another odd one that's recently come out was the Icon.
That's a couple months ago,
yeah. That one, the way that one works is, so if you have the wheel, the bolts all go in this way, and those bolts, when they come in, they lock that bead in.
It kind of like pinches it from the inside instead of from the outside.
Right, exactly. So you don't actually have a ring. They just they go in at an angle from the inside of the wheel.
which is pretty good. You know, a different style.
It is a different style.
I think that's also DOT compliant, right?
I believe so.
I think Hutchison's DOT compliant, and the Icon one also is DOT compliant. And then like there's other companies out there that sell like a kit, so you can take a steel wheel and you make your own beadlock kit with Total Metal Innovations. They make the kit where you take the steel wheel and you weld on the plates to make your steel wheel into a beadlock.
Yeah. And then they also sell the kit that welds onto the inside. Steel wheels, the biggest problem with a steel wheel is bending the wheel. I smacked a rock at KOH and bent my steel wheels on my JK, so we had to hammer that out. So they basically sell a ring that you weld onto the inner bead, and then the outside, which creates a beadlock. I think that is probably your most affordable option to
100%.
to get into a beadlock, unless you're paying a shop to
do the work. I mean, yeah, if you could do it,
if you can weld, you have a garage.
You get the time to do it.
That's going to be your most affordable option. I think at a later date, we're going to do a video.
Actually, for your Jeep with the steel wheel.
With the JK and the steel wheels, kind of show how we do that.
And I think a set of, they're cheap for that.
That's like about $700.
Yeah, so a lot cheaper than like a manufactured beadlock. So we're talking about beadlocks today, right? So there's a lot of pros and a lot of cons to them. And I would say like the pros of beadlocks, we kind of already hit on it a little bit, but I would say like with a beadlock, you can air down your tires to a lower PSI. Like I would say you could probably get 3. I would say 3 is probably where you want to.
That'd be the lowest.
Yeah, because you still got to worry about the inside bead from rolling. But yeah, you can like down to 3 PSI. You can start climbing rocks, really get that tire gripping and forming to the ground, to the rocks. You know, whatever terrain you're trying to get over. But yeah.
Yeah, and the next point you just touched on it, but you have that. It's a far less chance of rolling that bead.
Yep.
So that's the next point. I think another one is the wheels are typically stronger. So your wheel, the construction of beadlock, if you look at them, they are a wheel that they advertise as off-road use only. So they know that wheel is going to be put through the paces. So they make that wheel a little bit stronger, in my opinion.
And I think the ring too also adds a little bit more structure to it, because you got the ring, you also got the bore, so where those bolts for that ring go through, it's a lot more material there, so they can machine material away. So it is a lot, I would say, yeah, exactly, a lot more stronger of a wheel.
Yep.
And then,
go ahead.
All right, so and like I would say, like another good pro to a beadlock wheel is that the ring itself also protects the wheel from damage. So if you ever been off-roading before, you know, it's rocks, sticks, branches. Rock rash is a big one on wheels. And after you spend all this money on your wheels, the last thing you want to do is drag a rock across it. I know it's like an inherent risk of, you know, the love, the passion of what we do, but sometimes, you know, you
spend all this money on a set of wheels, and the first time you take it out and you just put that big old gouge in it, and then but after that it's all over.
Yeah, it's all over.
It's all game over. Just it is what it is.
It is. But the good thing about the beadlock wheels is that the rock ring, they even call it like it's a rock ring, or maybe like a rash ring or something, rash ring or something. That is that is sacrificial. So if you say you keep scratching it up, taking the paint away, taking away the aluminum, because they're made out of aluminum, except for, you know, the weld-ons, that's a lot cheaper of a part to replace instead of the whole wheel. So it protects the wheel, and there's different styles and different companies provide their own. And I know Trail Ready, they have like a slim ring, and then they have like wider ring, so it actually protects the internal structure of the wheel, but also protects like your valve stems.
Yeah, that's a huge one.
That's a huge one, because like you've already dealt with it before, but you know, having a rock that you don't see jetting out into the wheel, and then that wheel is just catching, or that valve stem's just catching that rock and ripping itself
eventually
out.
Rips itself out. Actually, speaking on that, a little bit off topic, but a great fix for that is carry a set of Colby valve emergency valves. They install from the outside. I've had to use one of those before, and honestly, that it definitely saved me.
Trying to change out a spare. I don't think you had a spare on that trip, right? Or did you?
I did. It was just on the under the side of the Gladiator. So.
Oh, it was on the Gladiator. I thought it was on the JK. So.
Yep. So.
But still, like, be under the ground. You know, now you're trying to drop a a wheel and tire, and
Yeah.
I mean the tire wasn't bad. It was just the valve stems.
Right.
That's an easy fix, you know.
Right.
And then I would say what, customization?
Customization. Yep.
Yeah, I guess-
So, you know, every rig out there, they got a custom set of rings on there to match and go along with the theme of their build. So
Yeah, to match the build, a little customization, kind of color matcher. We're like, exactly, you get to change it out based on your style. Now, I think we forgot to talk about this earlier, but like there are beadlocks in this, you know, industry, and there's also simulated beadlocks. And I know we're kind of talking about beadlocks, you know, what is a beadlock, but also be aware there's wheels out there that look a lot like beadlocks,
Yep.
but have zero of the, I guess, the capabilities of it. Yeah, so, and a lot of it's all based off of style. So it's just literally just like some of them use like real bolts that just thread into the wheel, but they don't grab the tire, do anything of that nature.
Right.
And then some of them actually use like plastic clips and
Little
stuff, like
caps.
little plugs that look like bolts. So, but that's just a style to get. That's a style to get you to make it look like a beadlock, but you're exactly none of the benefits. But rolling to that, so like there's also a number of cons that roll into or that are included with beadlocks. We already kind of talked about, you know, the beadlocks are beadlock wheels are stronger wheel, but with that strength, you also sacrifice one thing, and that's weight. Because I know these wheels we just mounted on this Jeep was about 20 pounds. I think it was like 119 when it started out before we.
and it's 126 something. So it's about, I think it was almost 13 pounds additional per wheel.
Per wheel. So between, you know, and we kept the same tires. So this customer, his tires are like 80%. He just got the wheels and wanted us to swap them over. So it was a very apples to apples comparison, other than the wheel being the thing that changes. And for us, we were actually very curious on how much the weight changed, you know, before and after. And I think it was what, 50 pounds was the total weight.
Roughly.
Yeah, roughly, that we added additionally onto the vehicle. But yeah, another thing was, I would say, maintenance, right?
Maintenance. I think maintenance is going to be your biggest con. We recommend, if you do not go off-road, which that's the point of a beadlock, but if you're not going off-road, at least check your rings and the bolts torque once a month.
Yeah,
I think that's a good
at a
maintenance
minimum.
interval.
Yeah, I'd say a minimum of at least once a month, because those bolts, they're normally torqued down between 20 and 30 foot-pounds. And normally what we use anti-seize, because it's a steel bolt going into an aluminum wheel, and you know, two dissimilar metals tend to create a corrosion. So the anti-seize could potentially cause those bolts to back out, especially being the torque value. So yeah, once a month at a minimum to check them.
Yeah. So to touch on maintenance again, so like we said, a minimum, if you're not going off-road, monthly. If you are going off-road, I would check them every time you're coming off trail. If you're coming off trail, throw your torque wrench on there and just make sure everything's still tight, and then you know you're good.
Yeah, because that's the thing, is that as soon as you air down, you know, you're subjecting this tire to a lot more
Deflection.
way more deflection. Yeah, so that it's you know, it's still a tire at the end of the day. So that tire can, you know, move on, you know, pinch between, you know, the ring and the wheel. So deflection is a big one, and
I think that brings us into balancing.
balancing is another good one. Yeah.
We do something a little different.
I think that we will get a lot of slag or a lot of kickback from this, because there's guys in this world. I know where you're going, but like I know, not to steal it from you, but I know, like, I think someone's gonna be like, no, you're doing that wrong, or you're doing this wrong. At the end of the day, it's your wheel. This is what we do, and we've had really good success with
Right.
it. Like, go ahead.
So we use airsoft BBs. There's formulas you can find online to tell you how many, what the weight you need to do, how many ounces of BBs per tire, and we've had good success with it. The big problem with the beadlocks, typically you're running a large tire and they're heavy. So finding a shop that's willing to throw that on their balance machine, slim to none.
Or having the capability of throwing it.
Right.
Because they do a lot of car tires. Unless
Right.
you're doing someone that does big trucks, I would say, you know, I say big trucks, but like dualies, something of that nature, where they're
Yep.
running bigger tires, or even tractor trailers.
Right.
But,
So that most shops are not going to want to balance that for you.
or take the liability too.
Right. Another thing is, If you're running beadlocks, typically you're in the rocks. So when you're using that tire in the rocks, I don't care what tire it is, it's going to chunk. So you're gonna lose chunks out of it. It's gonna get chewed up. And every time I go off trail, I've kind of learned this through the years, you got a tire vibration on the way home. So
and you'll even throw weights,
Yep.
just bouncing off of rocks. So
Yep.
it's a thing. Yeah, even if you could find a shop that would balance a tire, the first time you're taking out wheeling, like good wheeling, where you're actually in the rocks, as soon as you jump on the interstate, you'll be like, well, now I gotta take it back to the tire shop.
Yep.
So
those balancing beads are inside the tire, and they're gonna self-balance through centrifugal force. So that's why I like them. You know, you go off-road and you chunk the tire, and
it's self-balancing at that point. I mean,
Yep.
I feel like it's the best solution for what it is.
Yep.
I think sometimes a tire will get so badly unbalanced, even the balancing beads won't help, but I think it is probably the best solution that we came up with. And it's honestly a cheaper solution, because I think the airsoft BBs only cost like a jar is 20 bucks or something?
Close
maybe
to that.
Yeah, so.
And now you pay $25 per tire to have it balanced, and you have to do that every time you go off-road.
Off-road, yeah.
That cost definitely adds up. Next point, TPMS. So
that's dealing with airing down.
Yeah.
Yep.
So TPMS, tire pressure monitoring system. It's a little sensor that bolts to the valve stem inside the wheel, and we see it often. You're airing down and that tire folds over and it crushes the TPMS. So this is a little bit bigger of a problem, because those mount to the inside of the tire, and now you have to dismount that tire in order to fix that. So that if you did it yourself, you know, you probably just spent a Saturday, possibly a Saturday and a Sunday with a buddy, mounting your beadlocks, and dismounting them, in my opinion, is even more of a pain.
Dismounting them, yep. And the other thing about TPMS sensors is that as soon as you break one, I think they're like $100 to replace. So,
I think they're between a 50 and 100.
Yeah, I guess it depends what it is, but
aftermarket OE.
Yeah, versus, but so the cost to replace it and the time to rip it back down again is definitely something that could be considered when you're running beadlocks. For this customer, he actually chose to keep the TPMS sensors. And I can understand why he did, right? Because these Jeeps, right, there's technology built into them. Like you have the heads-up display, the infotainment screen that tells you what your tire pressures are on each corner, which in all honesty is a good thing to have, because like when you're airing down, right, you're like, all right.
For like the Gladiator, and I think it's I think they implemented it in the 21s or 22s in the JLs. You also have that airing down and airing up feature where the horn honks.
Yeah, and that's a cool feature that Jeeps just started doing, right? Like you no longer need to be there with a pressure gauge, wondering, all right, I'm at the right PSI. You just throw an air chuck on it, start filling it up, and the vehicle just honks at you.
Yep.
Like, all right, well, now I can run over and take it off.
Yep.
But yeah, so that's one of the features he wanted to retain on it, and I can completely understand that, and I'm not going to fault him on it.
We did inform him. We let him know. Typically, we use a Colby valve. Colby is a company. They make valve stems in different configurations. They make a permanent valve stem that installs from the outside of the wheel. It's an all brass construction. It holds up a lot better. It doesn't dry rot or anything like that. We've had really good luck with them. So typically we use the Colby valve, the permanent Colby valve. I had touched on the emergency Colby valve earlier, but that's what we typically recommend. But I give the customer obviously the option on what they want to do and what their goals are for their vehicle, and whichever route they go, it's fine. It's just I like to educate them so they're making an informed decision.
Exactly.
And that's going to suit their needs.
Exactly. And I would say, other than the big con, I would say with beadlocks, it comes down to cost.
It does.
Because when you take I'm talking wheels alone, I would say, and I know this because I've been looking at trail readies. I'm about to pull a trigger on a set of trail ready beadlocks, and I know a set right now is going for about $3,200. And cost, that's the biggest probably factor that goes into beadlocks. Between going beadlocks and non-beadlocks is the cost. So I'd say, and this I'm just gonna speak for trail riding because I know that because it's like fresh in my head from 2 days ago. A set of that is like $3,200 versus a non-beadlock wheel. What do you think? You've probably seen them more.
I would say you're anywhere from, on the lower end, 150. On the high end, maybe $350.
About like what, about $1,500 for a set of wheels?
Roughly.
Yeah, roughly. So we're almost talking double the cost for a wheel, but I think the capability is there though.
Right.
I think you definitely get a more capable wheel, but.
And I think that plays into it, being educated as this, I mean, that's our goal of this video, is to educate people so they can make that decision. Do I need a beadlock wheel? Will I ever use the capabilities of a beadlock wheel? If you're doing mild trails that you don't need to be aired down less than 10 PSI,
Yep.
I would say you're not getting your money's worth out of a beadlock.
No,
So
I think if you're a mall crawler, you obviously don't need them. You're all about the show, unless you're trying to show off how much money you want to spend. You know?
Yeah. So.
But yeah, cost definitely is a big one. And then I would say something to be considered. Consider well buying beadlocks, and it might be different for different states. But I would say the DOT compliance and how your state might actually pitch you on that, because I would say other than like the Hutchinson and the Icon are the only DOT compliant wheels. So anything else, like the ones we mentioned earlier, they're non-DOT compliant. So you might get hit by, maybe a ticket, but something to be considered.
I would say, just be aware of it. All the companies are going to say that they're for off-road use only.
And they're not going to take that liability. So it's on to you to maintain them, utilize them, take care of them. So it's on to you to take that liability. So if you're taking them on road, it's on you.
Yep.
But so the ones who are going to use the beadlocks, right? Like who is this is going to benefit? So I would say if you like the rocks and you see yourself on the weekends playing in bowlers, definitely I would say the rock crawlers out there definitely can utilize the beadlocks and make them more capable. And you'll have more fun and you'll hit some lines that you wouldn't be able to do on 10 PSI, but on 4 or 5 PSI.
Just gives you that little bit more traction.
Yeah, you're crawling up stuff.
Desert, soft sand, anything where you're looking at having that low PSI, snow.
Snow, because you want that wide footprint like we mentioned earlier. So you want to be on top of those surfaces. So.
Right. And then racing applications. I don't really know of any racing sanction that's not running beadlocks, at least in the off-road industry.
Yeah, I would say like anyone.
That's pretty well a standard.
Yeah, because last thing you want to do is out there rolling in the rocks, like Ultra 4 Series, King of the Hammers, all those guys are running beadlocks. Because why risk rolling a bead? And like kind of in the racing as well, but like the UTV market is huge in beadlocks. I think every time I see a UTV out there, I don't think they have the factory wheels on it. Or that's like one of the first upgrades they do is change out the wheels and tires.
And I know there's a lot of companies that are actually offering the UTV factory with a beadlock as well.
Yeah, they're kind of picking back off like Ford and Jeep, and they're like, hey, people want these options, this product, or this capability. But I would say like beadlocks, yeah, if you definitely could get a use out of them, definitely get them. It's a game changer. Maybe not be like one of the first things you do. I think maybe like build out the Jeep with a good suspension. And here's another thing too. If you're new to wheeling, I would say don't even touch beadlocks, because figure out where your Jeep can go on 10 PSI. Because here's the thing, as soon as you figure out where your points are your Jeep, and hey, like I grab traction here, I grab traction here, save your money, get some body armor, get some suspension under it, and then after all that stuff's been caught up.
I would say you're better off to spend that money on lockers.
Oh, 100% lockers. Yeah,
if you need lockers.
Oh yeah.
If you're open, spend the money on lockers. You're going to see way more of a benefit going with lockers than a beadlock.
Lockers can get you somewhere.
Yeah.
But if you're open and you run like 5 PSI, you're
still open.
You're still open. You're not going to be able to climb over things. Yeah. So you're just going to be able to have like a really cushiony ride. But that's kind of like what your ideas are, your thoughts, right? Because like we do a lot of builds, and you build them out, I throw the parts on it, we build them out together here, at the shop. But like, that's the thing, is like, you talk to people all the time about like, what are their goals and like what they're doing.
Yeah, so when I started this business, I always made that my motto. I'm not building this Jeep for myself, I'm building this for the customer. So a lot of people have told me I'm a terrible salesman, because if you don't need it, I'm not gonna sell it to you. So with that being said, if you, let's just say you're an overlander, you wanna go camping, you wanna go hit some fire roads and stuff like that, I'm not gonna sell you a set of beadlocks. It's money that you can put towards your build that's gonna benefit you, and you'll get more benefit spending that money in other areas.
And actually enjoy it too.
And enjoy it. So I think that's something that we do very well at the shop. I think we build out vehicles to the person's needs, and we don't feed them. We're not trying to draw from their their checkbook. We're not saying like, oh yeah, you need this, this, and this, and this. Yeah. It's like we'll set you up at this point, but hey, but if you come back to us and being like, you know what, I think I'm ready to make that next step. I'm ready, kind of climbing that ladder.
Exactly.
And capability.
But I think beadlocks, like we've been saying, definitely a good option. If you're ready for beadlocks, definitely pull the trigger. But if you're not gonna use them, don't waste the money on them.
That money can be spent in other areas that'll benefit you more.
No, 100%.
Another pro and con that we had down that I don't think that we touched on, it can be a pro and it can be a con. Tire shops, they're not going to touch them. So if you buy a set of beadlocks, they're not going to mount your beadlocks for you. They're not going to touch them. You're going to have to go somewhere like an off-road shop, somewhere like us. We mount beadlocks. Do it pretty often. But
yeah, we definitely do beadlocks pretty often.
Obviously, we cover ourselves, and at that point, you're taking that at your own risk, and we tell you what you need to do in order to be safe about it. But we're not advocating to run beadlocks on the road.
Yeah. But I think another thing off-road shops won't be able to mount your beadlocks, right? Sorry. I should say tire shops. Yes, we are an off-road shop. We will mount beadlocks, but a tire shop won't be able to mount your beadlocks. But I would say if you are the consumer and you have the capability, or maybe
and the time,
maybe even the knowledge, maybe you've done it before, you can mount your own beadlocks at home. It takes I would say maybe 30. It depends on what kind of tire you're dealing with, but like you can get a set of beadlocks mounted and balanced in a weekend for sure.
Yep.
100%.
You and a buddy.
100% a buddy.
I would definitely recommend having a buddy help you.
Yeah, especially when we're working with I would say
35s and larger.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Because those 40s and 43s kind of get heavy.
Yeah.
And the sidewalls get really real stiff in them. But yeah, I would say that's definitely a pro, is that you can definitely mount them at home.
Yep. Pro and a con. So however you take it.
But I think we've kind of covered everything with beadlocks in this one video. And if there's anything that you guys, any wheels that maybe we're not aware of for beadlocks, because I think we named off the common ones. But if there's another company out there that we're not aware of, go ahead and throw it in the comments. And if you are running beadlocks, or maybe you have some tips, tricks, things that you experienced with wheels, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Yeah. Maybe you have a horror story that we don't know about, blowing a ring off. But I'd be definitely interested, because that's always one of my fears, but especially when inflating them. But yeah, go ahead and throw that in the comments. But once again, I'm Alfred with Off Camber, and
I'm Rob with Adventure Bound Off-Road.
And we're glad that you guys can join us in this video, and hopefully we'll catch you guys in the next adventure. So if you guys, like this video, please, like, share, comment, subscribe, tell your friends, hide your kids, hide your wife.
Jesus.
All right, I'll do that again.